So hello guys and welcome back to PY Coding India Python Masterclass series. So this is the part 3 of this series, and in the previous lecture we have talked about what is Jupyter Notebook and how to write our first Python program. So in this series we are going to talk about something really important. So as for the most of the people, learning any programming language is like going for a war, which actually it should not be there, but let's just move on with it. So if we are going to have a war, why not carry some superb guns with us, right? So the guns here that we can use are data types and variables. So today we are going to talk about what are data types in Python, what are variables in Python, and how to use them. And then we are going to talk about what are the different types of data that we can store in Python. So without any further delay, let's get started. So what are variables in Python? See, variables are actually labels that we use to store a data. So for example, you are creating a Python program where you need to store age of a person, their name, and whatever, let's say it's a student, so their roll number as well. So how to differentiate between these three values? If you just simply write it, someone who else is using your code, he will be really confused that what do you mean by it, right? What are these numbers written over the screen? So to make them familiar with it, we use variables. So the naming convention is in Python while naming a variable is really important. So some things that you need to be careful about is like don't start the variable name with a number or any special character like hash or underscore or anything like that, okay? And also while naming your variables, they should all be in lowercase letters. And suppose if we use two words like first name, last name, so for that we need to use first underscore name, like as you can see in the example. So you will be seeing how to name a variable in just a few seconds, as I am going to implement it for you. The next thing we are going to talk about is data types. So what are data types in Python? See, there are various kinds of data that we can store in Python. For example, we can store a word, we can store some number. So there is no limit. Like for example, you can store some number, for example, someone's age. So it will be a integer value, right? Some other number like a complex value. You can also store the number in different formats like in binary number system, in octal number system, in hexadecimal number system, and also we can store some various other kinds of data. So data type is like really important. Now why am I saying this? Because it helps for Python, that it helps it to know what kind of data we are feeding to it, right? So for example, we are going to give it a number of items. For example, we are giving it how many salary someone has got in the last few months, right? So it should be in a float value. So I'm going to teach you about it more in the further session. So how Python sees a variable. Now this is a really important thing and you need to understand, so please kindly pay attention. When you create a variable, Python actually gives it a name. So why am I saying this? Let's consider our memory where our value of the variable is going to be stored. So in that, let us consider that it is a number of houses in a row. Okay, so when we say age is equal to 15, so Python goes into this into that street, finds a house, puts 15 in it, and puts a nameplate outside of it which says age, and inside 15 is sitting. Now for example, you update it to 20, right? So 15 will stay there only, 20 will come and sit at some other place, and age nameplate will be taken out from there and put in front of 20. Now what happens to 15? Python is really smart in that. Python throws it out, clears that memory. Okay, so I'm going to show you now that how to create variables and what is a data type. Okay, so let's go. So we are in our Jupyter notebook, and let me just show you a very simple kind of variable and data type. So for example, we are going to specify three things for some person. So first is their name. As you can see, we have put on a name, so this is called as variable whose value is in the double quotes. Now why is it in the double quotes? I'm going to explain it in a really few minutes. So let's say the name is Avnish, right? The age of the person is 18, and any other thing like email. So now if you want to specify email ID, it's better to write it using an underscore like this, email ID. So hello at the rate abc.com, right guys? So what does it actually mean? So this portion, name actually is an identifier for Python. So with this name it can identify that we are going to refer to Avnish. Okay, this is the data that we are giving to it to store, so this is known as a value. Now this portion, this equal to sign, this symbol is actually performing an operation. So what operation is it performing? It is basically storing this value into this variable. So this is performing an operation, that is why it is known as operator. So operators are really important in Python, and I will be teaching you about them in the next video. So now let us try to print them. So see, we can print them. Now to check what is the type of a data, we can use the type function. Okay, so it's really simple. Just use the type function and specify what kind of, which variable are you checking the type for. So type age, so it is showing you the class. So the name belongs to the class str, which stands for string. The age sits in the class int, which stands for integer value, and email id again sits in the class str. So what are the different types of data types in Python? Now I am going to show you about them. So guys, various data types in Python are comments, document string, and some inbuilt data types are Nun type, numeric, strings and characters, sequences, sets, and mapping. So don't worry, I will be explaining each of the term to you, and we will be talking about sequences, sets, and mapping in the further sessions with complete details, because these topics need a video of their own. So today I am just going to give you some glimpse of it so that you don't get scared when you read them in any other book or any other tutorial. Okay, so let's get started with the comments. So guys, now I'm going to tell you what is comment. So comments are basically they are used to leave some remarks in our code so that it makes it more readable, and also comment has a really important feature, that is it helps us to debug a code, right? So how to create a comment? So to create a comment, we use hash or a pound sign, and after that we can type whatever we want. So this sign, and then whatever we want to type. So this is a comment. Now to create multiple line comments, we can use three codes, right? These three, 1, 2 and 3. And so this Jupyter Notebook auto completes this feature for us. So now you can specify multi-line comments like multi-line comments. Now this portion, this in between the three single quotes, or you can also use double quotes like this, 1, 2, 3, right? You can also specify like this. So this is not only known as multiple line comments, this is also known as docstring. So this is the second type of the data type in Python. Now what is a docstring? So for example, in future you create a project or any simple kind of code. Now to make it more readable, we create docstring. Here you can specify for what purpose you are creating this code and what future like any kind of information that you want to give for your code, you can specify it over here, right? So this is some basic functionality. Now we are going to talk about the inbuilt data types. So the first inbuilt data type that we are going to talk about is the Nun type. So what is Nun type? As the name suggests, it is none. So like you must be thinking, what is the use of none, right? So none is actually really important. For example, we create a code and the default value that we have to give is none, and we know by the time our code proceeds it will surely give it some value, so we can use none. So for example, we can say name should be none, so a capital N then ONE, none. So let us check the type of name. So see, the type is Nun type, right? So, and the second type is numeric type. So numeric type actually has three important features. The first one is integer, the second is float, and the third is complex numbers. So if you are basically familiar with some basic mathematics, you must be knowing what these things are. So integer value is like a is equal to 10. So if we check its type, it's int, right guys? It's int. And if we change its value to float, that is the decimal values, then its type will change to float. Now how to create a complex number in Python? So let's say this is the a part, the real part, and the imaginary part is 2j. So this j actually specifies that this is a imaginary part, right? So if we execute it, it shows that it is a complex number. Okay, so I hope you are clear with these three things. Now how to create a binary number in Python, right? So to create a binary number in Python, we can actually specify it using a 0 and after that a b. Now you can specify whatever number you want, for example 1101 11010, right guys? So this is actually a binary number. To create an octal number, we can use, and octal numbers are basically created by 0 and then O and then whatever value you want to specify, for example 17. And hexadecimal values is created by 0 followed by an x. So these values, that is b, o, x, they can be like anything, means they can be uppercase or lowercase, right? So now how to create a value into the other value for, so what I'm trying to say is, if we want to create an integer to a float, what can we do? So it is also really simple. What we can do is, suppose the age is 12.89 anything. Now to create it into the simple values, just say int and then specify the age and store it in another variable. Now to, if we try to print b, so the value is 12, so this portion has gone. So the next thing that we are going to talk about is how can we convert these binary numbers into octal and hexadecimal. So I can really teach you about it, but I request you, please try it once yourself, since I have taught you how to create a float number into an integer. The same procedure goes for the binary, octal and hexadecimal. So what you have to do is, I'm just going to show you the for the binary. So the value is 26, right? So for octal and hexadecimal, please try it yourself, because hands-on coding actually helps you a lot. So moving further, now I'm going to talk about sequences, right? So what is actually a sequence? Sequence is really simple thing. Sequence actually consists of string. So what is a string? String is anything, like seriously anything, that is between a double quotes or a single quote. So hey, welcome. So this is actually a string. So if we check its type, it's str, that stands for string. Now what if we store a single character? So is it going to show us the character type? No. Now why so? In Python there is no such thing as character, it's only string, and I don't know why is like that. So string is basically anything that is stored between double quotes or single quotes. Now what is a byte? So guys, byte is a simple thing. Byte is anything that lies between the range to 0 to 255, and it must be positive number, right? So between 0 to 255, if any value lies, it is known as byte. So what is a bytes? Bytes is actually a collection of byte numbers. So bytes is collection. So to specify this collection, we use square brackets. So now 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, this is actually a bytes. Now what is a byte array? Byte array is also one and the same thing, but the only thing is that in byte array you can not change the values. Yeah, so in the byte array you can change these values. So to convert it into any bytes value, let's suppose it's b, and to convert it into the bytes value, it's b, and store it in the a variable. Now if we check the type of a, it's gonna be bytes, right? And the byte array actually helps you that you can easily modify it. Byte array, So if I try to update it, it can be updated using the functions update and remove. Now what are these functions? We'll be talking about later, because as we have a lot to cover right now. So the next thing is the list, tuple and range. So list is anything that is stored between the square brackets. So this v variable is also a type of a list, right? So 1 2 3, and it can also store any string values like okay, and other values as well, like 34.99. If we check the type, it's a list. Now what is a tuple? So some people call it tuple, some call it tuple, and I prefer it as a tuple. So what is a tuple? Tuple is basically specified in between the parentheses. Now the type changes to tuple. Now what is the difference between list and a tuple? Both can store the same type of data, but the basic change is the list is mutable while the tuple is immutable. So what is mutable and immutable? Mutable means that you can change it later as well. So if it's a list, you can change it, but if it's a tuple, you cannot change it, right? And the range is r. Yes. So let's specify 10. And what is the type of r? It's a range. Now what happens if we print r? So it specifies the range starts from 0 and ends at the 10. So range basically, it's actually also a function which will be used in the later stage when we are going to study for loops and while loops. So it actually takes three things. The first is start, second is end, and third is step. Now what are these things? Start is actually where from you want to start. So like I want to start from 1 and go till the 10, and while going to this, jump into two places. So this can also be done, right? If you try to print it using a for loop, you can see that there is a lot of change in it. Now the next thing that I'm going to talk about is sets and mapping. So this is a simple thing, but we are not going to cover a lot about them. We are going to talk about them later. So what is a set? Set is anything that is stored between curly braces. Okay, so like in mathematics, set is an unordered list of elements. Similarly here also it's unordered list of elements. Now if we repeat some values, for example 3 2, it's going to delete 1 3 and 1 2 when we are trying to print it. See, only the unique elements are left in a set, right? And the frozen set is actually, the frozen set is a type of a set only, but you cannot edit it anytime, right? So set can be edited in the future, but frozen set, once set, it cannot be edited. And the next thing is mapping. So mapping is also known as dictionary in Python. Now definitely these are some concepts that I'm just touching over a bit right now, but we are going to talk about them later when we will actually implement them. Okay, so how to implement a map? So map actually can be a value, a key and a value pair. So the first value, that is the 1 and 2, it stands for key, and the other part stands for values. So it is a key value pair. Now if I try to print s1, see, 1, when we put on the key 1, it gives us 7, right? And if we put key 2, it's going to give 9. So this is all about the data types in Python. I'm going to cover once again. So there is one data type, that is none, right? It stores nothing. It is just used in the future sessions when we try to implement a code and progress it with further, and we want to change its value in the later stages. The second type is numeric type. Numeric holds three things: integer, float, and complex numbers. So integer is stored like a simple number. Float is stored in the decimal places, and complex number is stored the real part, and the with imaginary part we need to use a suffix j. Okay, and to check the type of any type of data we can use the type function. Now the next thing is the how to initialize a binary number, octal numbers, hexadecimal numbers, and how to change their values. So as you can see, we have changed binary into an integer value. Next is sequences. Sequences is anything stored between double quotes or single quotes. And next thing we are going to talk about is bytes. So byte is any value lying between the range 0 to 255, and it must be a positive number. And after that we talked about what are sets and mappings. So thank you so much for watching this video. In the next video we are going to talk about what are operators in Python. So thank you so much for watching this video. See you again. Bye bye.